one of the reasons we flew the kids all here from LA and from everywhere basically was we wanted to, this was the only time that we were going to be able to spend this much time with adult children
Right.
who are working,
Right.
who are on their own schedules and doing their own things.
Right.
Unfortunately, my son, who is in LA, actually couldn't come. He has a compromised immune system, so he's afraid to fly at this point. I don't blame him. But spending time with the family, I think, has been an unusual piece. I have a very short commute, as you know, in Manhattan. It's literally 7 minutes door to door.
It's okay.
It's so I'm not making up for that kind of time, but I am making up for a lot of quality time that I spend otherwise with the family when they can see me. Because I'm normally not there. I'm in the office, until late at night sometimes. So
family's got to be the number one best part of it. Are you binging anything? Are you reading anything? I've asked people, do you have the head to read a book in this?
Right.
It's about 50-50.
It's true. I'm not binging anything because I frankly don't have time. Both because of the time difference here.
Gotcha.
Because I'm up basically at 6 o'clock in the morning to get on to, that's an 8 o'clock phone call, guys. So I'm up early and I'm basically probably up until about 11 o'clock at night, but I'm still doing things because there is so much to do.
Sure.
During the day, I'm answering questions with agents and we're still doing deals and keeping deals together and trying to move forward, making plans, all the rest of that. And so it's been very, very intricate because I do work at the top level of the company and therefore have responsibilities to figure things out and move forward with them.
And you do a good job at it. What's keeping you motivated in this?
Basically, I do talk to the agents. I talk to a good number of my agents every day.
Sure.
Keeping them motivated actually motivates me.
Sure.
Knowing that there is a future and what our future will be, I'm always motivated. I'm an explorer by nature. I love to travel, hiking. I love seeing things, doing things. I love new things. I'm not a creature of old habit.
Sure.
Yesterday was yesterday, and I want tomorrow to be something different.
Sure.
So, planning for something different and sort of knowing the motivation that tomorrow will be different and that every day is different, frankly, is motivating to me.
And grounding?
Well, I think I'm a fairly grounded person.
You are a fairly grounded person. The trick is how do you stay grounded in this and not let your head go to the moon?
Yeah, and wander. I think, look, I've been lucky in that respect in that I think I'm so involved in what I'm doing for business that I don't have time in some respects to sit and really ponder the world in a philosophical fashion to figure out, where am I going with all of this? But I have had time to sit and know what I want out of the future, and now it's a matter of how do I deal with that. And so, I think my kids ground me, my wife grounds me pretty well. We are definitely yin and yang, so that part's a good thing.
Not having the time is a big deal. Keeping it moving. Jerry Seinfeld had this great line. I think I heard it a couple of months ago. He said, at 6 o'clock in the morning when the alarm goes off, I'm freaking out about 1,000 things. As soon as my feet hit the floor, I'm moving.
Yeah.
And it all goes away. And I heard him say that. I go, I'm not the only one. You do that too. And so it was a great, that's what it is. Keeping going.
Yeah.
Keep moving.
And it's one of the things people say to me. I turned a certain age, and people said, "Oh, well, you're not that far from retirement then." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, I have no intention of ever retiring, so to speak. I may have multiple jobs into the future and doing things that I'm going to do, but the word retirement is antithetical."
And this is a good enough taste of semi-retirement where you're not going in, and it's enough. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. I've had enough. I know my plane ticket is in 2 weeks, and I'm good.
Is it? You're coming back in 2 weeks?
I'll probably come back in 2 weeks. We've got a lot to set up for, and lot to deal with, and I think that boots on the ground are going to be important.
What's the best isolation meal you've had out there?
Funny enough, and you would think, okay, I'm in Santa Fe, it's got to be something, Tex-Mex or whatever.
Sure.
But the reality is, it was paella.
Oh,
I love paella. I'm a Pisces, so I'm a seafood person. Seafood, I eat it. But there was a fantastic paella. We've been really good about 2 nights a week. We go out and we do the curbside pickup at the restaurants. Our schedule here in New Mexico, we're a little earlier than New York.
Okay.
So our stores are open now. About 70 to 80% of the stores have reopened,
Okay.
and our restaurants reopened yesterday.
Wow.
So I actually have reservations Friday night.
Wow, that's great. That's
Yeah.
gonna, and they're distancing, they're setting up at certain capacities.
It's all done with, you wear a mask until you're ready to eat or drink. They do set you up, really well. We're going to a place that has copper top tables, which copper, as you know, is supposedly better for this issue than most.
Wow.
So I'm looking forward to it. So we're feeling a little bit more liberated than maybe people are in New York at this point. That's also another disconnect that we've sort of felt.
Right.
But the paella was a really, really great paella, I must say, from this Portuguese restaurant that's here.
That's one of the better answers. Usually people are like, oh, my spouse made this and that, but paella. Now you're.
Well, you know my spouse well enough. She doesn't make nothing except reservations.
Yeah, well, but she's doing it right. She got you to the paella. So really,
absolutely.
Have you read anything great in the last 30 days?
I actually read a book. It's called 908 Palace. It's an unusual book. I promise you nobody else will have read it.
Okay.
It is it's basically a book about Santa Fe and Los Alamos. Wow. And this was a book about history. I actually like history. And there is a store in Santa Fe that is currently a store that features old American Indian prints. That store was the famous store where the scientists walked in the front door. They thought they were in the store.
Oh.
The people talked to them, and literally there was a bus out back with blacked out windows, and there were curtains, so you couldn't even see where you were going out the back door.
Sure.
And they literally took them from there to Los Alamos. And so I'm reading about the history of this, which is, fascinating to me. I mean, I didn't know anything about science, the atomic bomb, and whatever, other than what you remember reading about in school.
Sure.
But because we're here, and Los Alamos is very close, actually, to Santa Fe, we can see it actually out of our kitchen window, the lights at night. On the western view, it's really fascinating to me to see the culture of all these European scientists that they dumped in the middle of nowhere, effectively at that point in time, and what later became of Los Alamos. There's actually a second book which I probably will bring back to New York and read there, that talks about what happened once they had settled the place and what have you, because they're I don't want to say day school, but I guess it is a boarding school that's there at this point. They put out some of the best minds, like 99% of their people actually go to Ivy League schools.
Wow.
Yeah, Ivy League colleges. It's amazing what's still there.
And still operating.
Oh, very much so. I mean, they have one of the largest budgets, probably larger than what I remember as the National Bureau of Standards in Washington, D.C., which is where I grew up.
Sure.
But they have a huge budget. They do all sorts of things. They're doing COVID research as well in some of the science labs, but they do just a tremendous amount of research on a lot of different subjects, even today.
Wow. You grew up in D.C.?
I grew up in Chevy Chase, Maryland. Right at the D.C. line.
When I was in college, I dated a girl from Potomac, so there you go.
Okay, yeah.
And what'd you want to be when you were growing up in Chevy Chase, Maryland?
I wanted to be an architect, and that was obvious to my parents from a very young age. The first picture I ever drew with crayons was a house.
Okay.
And I was one of those real estate junkies who, my parents lived in an old house built in 1900, and we used to go to open houses. I would drag my parents to open houses. I would look at other people's places. It was just always, a thing. I took drafting in high school as one of my electives.
Wow.
I went to Tulane University for architecture. I ended up not staying at Tulane because I made 2 cardinal mistakes. I didn't do enough research to realize that their program was much more engineering oriented
Okay.
and humanistically oriented. And I wanted the humanistic part of architecture, of how people related to spaces.
Okay.
And I also dated the dean's daughter, that was the second mistake. So at a Friday night dinner, he and I sort of had it out, and I said, you know what? I don't think Tulane is going to be for me.
Right.
Exactly. So I then went back to business school at the University of Maryland and did a minor in urban and regional planning.
College Park.
Yep.
Yep.
And so then basically real estate is my marriage of the two pieces of architecture, design, and business.
And even the food couldn't keep you at Tulane in New Orleans.
No, it couldn't. First of all, it was too spicy for me. I can't eat that really spicy gumbo and what have you.
Okay.
That'll do me in.
Okay.
Yeah.
What restaurant do you miss the most? Who's the shout out going to?
Oh, in New York? It's going out to Avra.
Ah, good.
Love Avra.
Good.
They've never served me a bad piece of fish.
Nope.
Love the woman who runs it. I mean, it's just it's a great place. I've been to both of their places. I frequent both.
And for you, it's kind of like just a straight line.
Correct.
And then you turn around and you go home. So it's a very parallel path you're running.
That's correct.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I thought I had it easy, but that's right there.
Exactly. And my wife, she knows to meet me there at least twice a week.
Now, the kids who are with you, how old are your kids?
My kids are 20. I have twins that are 26, and I've got one in LA who's 30 going on 31.
Gotcha. All right. So then the question, have you ever made a TikTok? It's completely inappropriate.
The clock? What are you talking about? No, I'm kidding.
I know you are. French fries or onion rings?
French fries, but well done. I love onion rings, and I like them when they're cut on the French way, basically.
Yep. Pickles? Yes, or
I like pickles. And it's funny because I like different kinds of pickles. That part's fine. I'm just not a pickle aficionado, as you'd call it, but I like them in different things.
And dogs or cats?
I happen to be a real dog lover, but don't tell my daughter's cat, who's staying with us in New York.
God. And what's your favorite pizza topping?
Mushrooms, black olives, capers.
Oh, you're
probably that way. Sort of the Mediterranean topping.
Which leads to, because I watch the Facebook page and you travel to some really great places. Is there a restaurant not in New York overseas that you think of before?
Yeah, probably. I would say the Tour d'Argent in Paris.
That's a good answer. I know the answer to this. I was going to say beach or mountains, but you're in the mountains. You're in the desert.
But interestingly enough, I'm in the mountains, and I love being in the mountains. It definitely is peaceful in the mountains. I love the views, and I like hiking, and I won't swim in a mountain lake, though, because I don't know what's at the bottom.
Interesting.
But really, I'm a beach person, is the reality.
Really?
Oh, we were in the Hamptons, and for years and years. I've made every major life decision sitting on a beach, because to me, the sound of the waves drowned out the noise, and you can actually get to what is important.
I never would have asked the question. I just took a shot. That's brilliant. And you're right. It drowns out the noise.
Yeah. I absolutely love the beach.
Fantastic. All right. So then that leads to the question.
I grew up on a beach, basically, because we had a beach house in Bethany Beach, Delaware.
Oh.
And we literally spent every single weekend and every summer there as well.
Not that far.
No, it was 3 hours.
That's not that far. So then that begs the question, where's your happy place?
On the beach.
On the beach. That's what.
This house, believe it or not, is a happy place for sure. But any beach that I can walk on, surf on, swim.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew? What's the first thing you want to do without a mask? Keep it clean.
It's fine.
Family show. My daughter watches this.
I would say probably go swimming. Put on a different kind of mask.
Exactly. Put our snorkeling.
Exactly.
So let's talk business.
Yeah.
Now that there's one I ask everybody. It's just Oreos. Original double stuff or mega?
Listen, if you want to be true to yourself, you go to the original.
Okay.
But if I'm going to go that direction,
Yes.
I'm going to mega stuff.
Okay, fine. This is why I'll say nice things at the end that are appropriate. What do you think is going on in the city? You know, I was watching CNBC today, and it starts to talk about an exodus.
Yeah.
And I was talking to people, and they're like, well, people who are leaving, they're going, people are on the fence and all of that. What do you don't have a crystal ball. You're a really great guy and you're a really smart guy, but what do you think is going on?
I think well, first of all, as we've always known, there are lots of different markets in New York.
Sure.
So almost every neighborhood has a different market. You can take markets across sizes, types of properties, all sorts of different things.
Sure.
Do I think that there are people who are going to leave the city? Absolutely.
Sure.
I think the vast majority of those are people with children who do not know what is happening with the schools. There are people who know that virtual learning is something that their children either have difficulty with or they just don't want them to have to deal with it.
Right.
They want them to have a play date. They want them to have a green area to run around,
right,
or what have you. And so I do think that there are that group of people, and they're probably divided. 50% of them are going to try and go out and buy outside of the city, and 50% of them are going to rent for a year to see how this can all shake out.
Right.
But other than that, the people who are going to leave the city are people who were, I think, I don't want to say majority, but a good lot of them are going to be people who were going to leave the city anyhow.
Anyway.
Our city is frankly suffering. It's been suffering for a while. I won't get into politics because, boy, I could shoot off into it,
And it's too easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's too obvious.
Right. But
right.
I do think that the landscape was going to change no matter what.
Yep.
But the good part about New York City, the great part about New York City, is that somebody wants to move out, but somebody wants to move in. And just because people are going to look at the possibility of remote access, to me, doesn't mean they're completely going to leave the city. Right. I don't think, some people have said companies are actually going to leave and take up places in suburban areas or what have you, because that's easier for them, and then they feel that people will have a better lifestyle. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is, they're going to figure something out. They're going to make this work. And, I'll still sit next to you at a theater seat on Broadway, hopefully, I'm going to say not into the too distant future. Right. I do think that it's the culture of New York, and I don't think that culture is going to die. I think it's going to go through a bit of a metamorphosis, but it's not going to die.
No. And the suburbs, at the end of the day, aren't all they're cracked up to be.
No. And listen, I'm somebody who moved out to the suburbs for a good number of years. We raised our kids in Scarsdale.
Okay. And
for 20 years. And my wife joked with every person who she ever met in Scarsdale as a good friend and they said, you're going to stay in Scarsdale when the kids graduate. No, we will go directly from graduation to the closing. She missed by 9 days.
Oh my God. That's it.
We moved out 9 days later.
Not only the paella, that woman knows what she's doing.
She does.
Yeah.
She knows what she wants, for sure.
What she wants, there you go. And, it looks great on paper in the midst of all of this. And then it takes you a day to get your laundry and your dry cleaning and your groceries and all that. And then all of a sudden, you see your property at 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
I did it 2 years, 3 months, 4 days, and I was back. And
as I said, I've got a 7-minute commute now, and before it was considerably longer.
Sure.
And I think people will realize, even those who move out to rent, who I think are the intelligent ones, who are not necessarily going out to buy,
right,
and make a permanent change. Because I've always, advised people, when you go through something that's a shock value proposition, don't decide to do anything right away, whether it's a death, a divorce, or whatever happens. Wait out a year and see how things shake out. And I think that those people will, in fact, all come back to the city.
Yeah.
And resume what will be a life at that point.
I don't disagree with you. I think it's just a question of everything's got to just calm down. And right now, it's like putting up an umbrella in a hurricane. It doesn't work.
Exactly.
Just relax. Have you been talking to your brokers? Have they been changing their business model and trying to make that umbrella go up? Or are some of them just going, I'm going to wait this out until there's some clear skies, and then we'll figure it out from there?
I think there's always a combination of both. And that's the good part of having a large company is that you at least have a group who are doing things. I think, when we closed down, in my office alone, we signed over 30 deals after the offices closed down.
Wow.
And so my agents really have not stopped working. I would say everybody probably everybody in our company has a serious thirst for business.
Sure.
And have really tried to, during this time period, keep up whatever they can. We've had town hall meetings every week. We continue our training online. We do a lot of outreach individually to our agents to talk to them, to see how they're doing, and to talk about their business and their plans. So we really are very hands-on when it comes to our relationships with our agents, just as our agents need to be in their relationships with their clients.
Sure, sure. Now, when things start to kick open and the sun starts to shine, are you in the camp of it's going to be a frenzy of activity, or do you think it's going to ramp up slowly?
If you'd asked me that 10 days ago, I would have said a frenzy. I would say there are more people with their foot on the brake, right this minute. And I think 10 days ago, there were a lot of people with their foot on the gas pedal, just seeing how fast they could push everybody to get into the market. Obviously, we've got a lot of new product coming onto the market, but I am also hearing new buyers. So I'm very pleased with that factor, and the fact that we have been signing things all along. I mean, we did sign a contract yesterday. So even in the midst of what's going on, I think everybody realizes that the chaos is not permanent.
No.
And that this issue will take a natural course to correct itself. There have been a lot of eyes on it. It's not just national, it's international now. So New York is not just the only one affected. Again, after 9/11, we were affected. Yes, sure. Pennsylvania had their thing too, and so forth, and Washington did as well. But this is both local, national, and global.
Right.
And so I do think that it's not going to have as devastating a long-term effect on New York. I hate to say this, but the people who benefited out of this are the guys who put the glass storefronts back up.
I was thinking about that yesterday. I was talking to my shower door guy who does glass, and I'm thinking he's got to be bouncing off the walls. And, the funny thing is you just said something and it stuck into my head. People have always said New York, center of the country, to an argument, center of the universe. So what happens to the center of the universe? What happens to the rest of the universe?
Right.
And I think people disconnected that mentality. This is New York. It's not just gonna fall down. It's
no. Look, this issue's going, as I said, it's going to take its natural course.
Sure.
I do think it's going to take some time to get it much more into a right place. Nothing happens overnight.
Sure.
But I think that the voices are being heard, and the fact that what's happening is happening, is the same disgusting scenario, frankly, that occurred during the last election. I heard from somebody who owns the town, or is in the townhouse next to the Goyard store right off Madison Avenue. And she relayed an entire scenario to me about what happened there in the break-in. They did arrest the 6 people because she called the police. And the car that they arrived in had Nevada plates. So the fact of the matter is, the same thing that was potentially happening where people were inciting other people, I'm not saying they were paid for it, but maybe they were encouraged and enticed to go and do something. I do think that that's happening here. And I hope that they will separate the wheat from the shaft. We will have the protests be appropriate. This nonsense will stop. But I do think that if it does continue for the next week, I think we could also very easily see Cuomo push off June 8th.
Yes.
So and I've already heard that actually is under consideration if this were to continue.
Yeah. And the curfew is going to continue until June 8th. And so the question is, at what point now, how many balls is he juggling? And,
exactly.
you really, he's tested. He's tested. Love him or hate him,
For
man's
sure. Absolutely.
he's making the money. So this reality, he's just got to deal with all of this, and
Right.
that I don't disagree that could happen.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that no one really knows what's going to happen on June 8th. Period. Before this or after this, there's no plan.
Correct. Well, what's interesting is they talked about at the end of the first week that they were going to do an analysis of the COVID numbers again.
Yes.
See whether or not there was a spike. And if there wasn't, then they would continue on the second week and announce that phase 2 would start on the 22nd.
Right.
Whether or not that happens, is obviously still way up in the air. Sure. But I do think if they can route out the problem here in fairly short order, I do think we could be on our way to that timing.
I will tell you, I'm out east, and I was in the city this morning. I was going back to the city last night to drop my daughter off at her mom's, and I didn't go. At around 5:55, I got a flurry of texts from mothers, coworkers, bookkeeper. You don't want to be here.
Oh, wow.
But it was a relatively calm night. It was not what it was a few nights previous. Sure. Yeah. And I thought to myself, well, what's this going to look like? And after dropping her off, I was on the corner of 7th and First, and there's a guy riding up the street in a bicycle, and there's a woman shopping, and there's a dog walker walking 6 dogs. And I'm like, it's going to get back. It's going to, it's definitely moving in the right direction. The speed in which it moves, listen, they'll put it, if they put it off a week, wouldn't be the dumbest thing in the world. But, I think we'll have to see how this plays out.
Well, the issue really is 2 weeks after they do phase 2, the question is, have the COVID numbers spiked?
Correct.
And that has to do now with both what has happened in the city with social distancing not occurring during the protests, or the fact that phase 2 has gone back to work. So that'll be the key. That'll be the key factor.
Well, my fingers are crossed.
Yeah,
as are yours.
Yes, they are.
You're going to be pushed off 2 more weeks if you don't. If you.
Yeah.
What do you think the one takeaway, doesn't have to be one, is from all of this?
That's an interesting question. I don't think there is just one takeaway. I do think that everybody has realized that, first of all, the internet is here in a major way. Things like Zoom are here to stay. They're a major part of our life. I do think that a takeaway is that the state of New York has to come forward with enough governance to allow e-commerce in our business. Every other state in the union, effectively, a closing, and we've owned properties in different states and what have you, still do. The closings are completely different. So I'm not suggesting that we route lawyers out of the program. I don't think that's going to happen, and nor do I want it to.
Right.
I do think we have to give everybody an e-platform to operate from. And I do think that the lesson learned was we weren't prepared, and everybody needs to get prepared.
Right.
Somebody could say that, well, a tech company who came into our real estate world could have shaken everything and done everything in a very different way that we've had to change our business to begin with.
Sure.
And the reality is, no, we all had to change our business plan. And so I do think that the takeaway is that things that we were thinking before that we hadn't necessarily taken action with are correct, and we need to take action with it and get that together. And I was actually just on a call with the real estate board today having to do with, putting together a plan that we can send to Albany so that we are looking forward toward a new platform that we can all utilize and will benefit everybody.
They don't have a choice.
No, they really don't.
They really don't. This has to, your industry is part of everything coming back. And without your industry coming back, what are they going to bank on?
Exactly.
Candy? Give me a break. Candy stores, that's over. So what, that they've got to be receptive. And to your point, it's not the same everywhere in the country.
No.
Except the center of the universe is playing with one hand tied behind their back. That seems insane.
It is reality. It is insane. Listen, I helped formulate the RLS, which is our listing system through the real estate board. For years and years, I've been an advocate of sharing listings and the way we've done it. I'm still on the board as the co-chair so that we can get our technologies up to snuff.
Sure.
And make sure that people are looking at the same information and just able to differentiate themselves with their service. And I do think that, again, that's something else we've learned, is that you must do this, because you are in the real estate brokerage business. You are a service that you are giving to people. And it's that service that's going to differentiate you. So the rest of it all has to basically be there as a platform.
Sure.
And every company realizes it. The real estate board realizes it. Definitely the state is going to realize it. So how quickly it happens in the next year or so, if we can get everything together, I think we'll be in a much better place. And thank God we're not going back to where we came from.
No, and it's things like that. They talk about how much economic stimulus they want to pump into the economy, but it's things like you're talking about are as, if not more important, because that's the whole game. At some point, you run out of money to pump into the economy without destroying it. But what you're talking about, that's what you want.
Well, no transfers, no transfer taxes.
Huh.
We're talking city, state, and Fed. I mean, it's all there. If you don't have capital gains, if you don't have these different kinds of transactions, the states could fall. I mean, there could be big problems.
Well, you would know because you're in the middle of all of that. So the reality is, let's hope they're listening. Because
absolutely, they're listening.
Yeah,
they're listening. We just have to come up with the right voice, just the way what's happening in New York City today. They've got to find the right voice. We've got to find the right voice, but we do it through the real estate board usually, and I think it's going to be very effective.
I got one last closing question, and I realized I left it off of the fun stuff. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
I'm going to say salted caramel. And that's a change because I was a chocoholic before.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Major chocoholic.
So I got to say something at the end of this. A long time ago, which it's not that long ago, it was about 4 years ago, you called me up and you said you saw something I put together, Lenny, and you said, I'd like to meet you. And I was like, okay. And I show up in your office and the view is just nuts. And you could not have been more generous and more of a cheerleader and go, I think you're onto something here. And I'm going, really? You think so? And, you know, it was a meeting like you that got me going to the next level. And you've been a big supporter and just a good friend. So I really thank you for that 4 years ago. It meant everything. It was an aha moment for me. So
that's great. That's great. Well, you've done wonderful things for me, for agents in our company, for the industry, and obviously for the people who hire you. And so for that, I'm always grateful.
We got some things coming. You know, I'd say one of the best things about isolation is it gives you time to think. Sometimes about bad things and sometimes about good things. So hopefully, he wants dinner. So hopefully sooner than later, I'll have something coming. But again, thank you for taking the time.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
And he's getting punished.
Okay.
I'll see you soon. I'll see you without a mask sooner than later.
Absolutely. Take care, ladies. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.